agenda item, which is no doubt of equal excitement and interest. The AP US History textbook adoption. And so AP adoptions, really, textbooks are primarily only adopted now through AP. And the reason why that happens is that AP comes up with a very short list of textbooks that they will accept for AP courses. They give us time to vet those textbooks, and they expect that we keep our textbooks up to date. So US history has been long overdue as a textbook adoption for AP, and the department did a fair amount of homework to do with their AP adoption. Came up with a recommendation from student vetting, staff vetting, all sorts of different mechanisms to look at the textbooks that they were offered. And the one that was offered, they came up with a new edition. So they thought it was prudent to go back to the drawing board and make sure that they would make the same selection. So it's out of financial responsibility that we don't have that presentation for you tonight. But we will have it in March as the plan. So they just need a little bit more time for that. So that's my update on AP US history. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
So basically, it sounds like it's just an updated version of a book they had already selected, and they just want to review the updated materials to make sure it's still on point with it, to meet their needs.
Yeah, to see
Okay.
if it's still the one that they would select and recommend.
Okay.
Just because the newest edition came out, so we always try to get the newest,
Mhm.
because AP will weed, that book collection pretty quickly.
Okay.
So, yeah, they already looked at all the other ones. And yeah, that one's updated.
I have a peripheral question.
Mhm.
Given how much there is in US history, which is enormous and it's changing and growing daily.
Mhm.
In an AP course with a text like this, how much latitude is there for a teacher to be able to shape the experience, or is it mostly pretty intensive marching through the
Yeah.
tremendous amount of materials?
So I have two very well-versed teachers at the table. I don't think either one of you teach AP history right now, right?
Do not.
But certainly have experience in that. So vast majority of the AP courses are pretty prescribed by College Board. We have to submit a syllabus that says how we're going to cover what they expect you to cover in order to continue our AP certification. But that is actually one of the courses we do not write curriculum for because it is so prescribed in terms of content and volume. And there is quite a bit of volume, in particular in AP US history. Although I believe Laura Stott, who has taught the course for quite some time, has taken a more creative approach on it and had success in doing that. But it's tough with AP. But now I'm going to ask you.
Especially that course, AP US, yeah, there's a lot of content to cover in a short period of time, so. But I think they're able to branch out to some degree on, to expand on the lessons. I teach AP psychology, and there's certainly time beyond the textbook to go further and, explore some other topics that maybe are not just in the text to sort of enhance that experience of studying psychology, which I think they do in AP US as well.
I agree.
Thanks. I mean, I just think it always raises a dilemma in terms of, very heavy on content and information, and, what are you giving up in that process?
Yeah, the social studies standards, when they came out, were actually very mindful of that there's too much content to actually cover. So they gave certainly some direction to look at things thematically throughout time and pick the most important events that contributed towards an outcome. And that's how the curriculum's been developed. AP is the most restrictive, ECE is a little bit less, but certainly we don't write for AP because that is that reason. Welcome, Chair Klaskin, Dr. Cook. We did introductions. I'm just going to highlight in the introduction, we covered AP US history, which no doubt was your most exciting topic on the agenda tonight. But actually the next two topics are new pieces that this board actually funded. So these are new programs started in the fall. And first we have Chrissy Coyle talking about the college and career counseling with some huge progress already. Congratulations, Chrissy. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, and we have Wendy who's going to share your presentation.
Perfect.
And click through. Wendy, if you want me to do the clicks, Chrissy and I kind of practiced, or Chrissy's got the clicker. No, you can click.
Okay.
I just want to say I apologize for being 5 minutes late. My workday did not permit me to be here on time, but I was a history major, so
Sorry.
I am bummed out that I missed the first agenda.
I am happy to walk you through the recap. The good thing is you did not really miss it because it's going to be on the agenda in March.
Okay.
Basically, they came out with a new edition, so we are circling back to the table to make sure our selection is on point. So stay tuned. March is another chance.
All right, well, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm really excited to tell you about some of the changes in our department. It's been really especially exciting for me in this new position because this has always been an area of my job that I've been particularly passionate about. So first things first, our new College and Career Center. I don't know when you were last in the high school, but our old center was really pretty formal and stale. We had computer stations set up facing the wall and a gigantic conference table in the middle. It really wasn't conducive to interaction, and it was kind of hard to move about the room. It was overall pretty uninviting. So what we were able to do was get some new furniture. So you can see some pictures of the new space. It's a little more modern. The students really enjoy the comfortable seating and the more collaborative environment. Definitely is more casual and I would say pretty inviting. Thankfully, we've gotten rid of some of the old outdated technology. We had a large tube TV straight with a VCR, so that was great.
That was a history lesson.
We now have a Promethean board, which is much more conducive to our presentations and lessons that we're doing. So I really have three main objectives for this school year, and most of the work that I'm doing with students really falls under one of these three objectives. So the first is just exploration of college and career options with students. And this is happening through individual and group meetings as well as classroom lessons. And that's been, kind of a continuation of the school counseling job. So the second objective is to enhance student learning with community-based experiences. So this is happening through field trips, bringing in guest speakers and other special events throughout the school. And then finally, developing some partnerships for experiential learning. So this will include things like job shadowing and internships. So as far as career exploration goes, with the underclassmen, all of the 9th and 10th graders were scheduled for a time to complete the career interest profiler using our program called Naviance. So some of you might be familiar with Holland's theory of career choice. You might have actually done this assessment at some point in your schooling, but John Holland was a psychologist who kind of found a way to classify people according to their interests and therefore match them up with suitable careers. So the students all took an assessment and learned about what Holland traits they sort of fell under and what would be a good match for them based on whether or not they were a conventional type person, an artistic kind of person. So they had some time to research some different jobs and hone in on some things that were of interest to them. So they looked at things like, what type of education and training do I need to obtain this job? How much money am I gonna make? They really liked that part. What are some related careers, and then what are some different majors that a person could study to be prepared for that. We also looked at our Daniel Hand High School courses. So students identified which career cluster their identified job fell under, and then we looked at what courses could be a good match. We're actually jumping into the course selection process starting tomorrow already in advisory. So I wanted the students to see how we offer some really amazing opportunities that can help them get prepared for the future. So I wanted to note that Naviance is really kind of our main method of using technology for college and career exploration. It's certainly good at some things, but it has some shortcomings for sure. So we're currently looking at a new platform called SchoolLinks. And over the past year, we've had students and counselors and administrators look into it. And we think it could be a really good resource. We're not ready to dive right in just yet. There's a cost associated with it, and it is a relatively new company, but we're going to continue our exploration with that because we want our students to have the latest and greatest in terms of career exploration tools. So we will continue our work with that. With the upperclassmen, a lot of my work has been in individual meetings with them. So working to develop or refine their plans. As you know, a lot of our students move on to four-year colleges, so helping them with college research and identifying different options that would be a good fit for them, as well as helping them to navigate the application process, which certainly can be daunting, to say the least. In the fall, I held some open sessions in the Career Center, some workshops and group sessions focusing on the common application as well as resume building. So students were able to drop in during their free period and get some help in those areas as well. And then I believe last month you guys had an update from Jen Hawley and Sarah Sandora on the wellness curriculum. So that curriculum will include some work with me throughout the school, the 4 grade levels. So community-based experiences has been one of the more fun parts of this job for me and for the students, I think. So one of the past events we had back in October was a trip out to the Lead Company, which is a manufacturing company out in Westbrook. They were kind enough to open their doors to our students and show them around the facility and talk to them about a whole host of jobs that they offer at the company. And I think it was really positive for our students. We had some kids walk away and say, yeah, I could definitely see myself working in this kind of facility. And we had others that said, you know what, I think I'm going to take a different route, but it was helpful to go and to learn that. We were also able to take a trip to Gateway Community College. If you haven't been down to the new-ish downtown campus, it's really beautiful. And I think it's a fantastic option for our students. If you don't know, our high school graduates can attend community college for free through the PACT program. So I think that makes it an especially attractive option. So it was good to take a number of kids down to campus to take a visit. We also had in December a visit from Goodwin University's Mobile Manufacturing Lab. This was a very large RV type vehicle that set up camp in our back parking lot, and students were able to take a tour and see some of the equipment that people in the manufacturing industry use. And then they sat for a little presentation from one of the professors at Goodwin University to learn about different jobs in manufacturing and the need. And it was kind of cool for kids to see all of the different Connecticut companies that are here in the manufacturing field. We have some upcoming events on the calendar as well. So on January 20th, we have some representatives from Electric Boat coming down to talk to students about all of the different career paths offered in that gigantic company. So we're really excited for that. We're going to be taking a trip up to Hampton, Connecticut to see Porter and Chester, which is a trade and technical school. And so that should be helpful for some of our students who are still trying to figure out their plans. We're planning to take some juniors as well as seniors. So for juniors, it will be a good kind of jumping off point in their search for educational opportunities. And then also on the calendar in March, we have Middlesex Health, which is hosting a career day at the Westbrook Clinic. So that's going to be fun to see all of these different health careers that the students can explore. So we're excited to see that. One of the challenges that we have kind of come across is just communicating this to students. So obviously right now we have some ways to get the word out through Google Classroom and morning announcements and word of mouth and recommendations from teachers and counselors, but surely we're missing some people. So we're just throwing some ideas around on how to kind of get the better word out so that more students are aware of what's going on. And we're located in the main hallway, so it's kind of nice to, see students coming and going. So I'm hoping we can get some kind of TV screen to sort of scroll different things that are coming through, and that way students can be aware of things that are going on. So that is a work in progress for sure. Here's just some silly photos of some of our students enjoying some of the activities. We have our students at Gateway listening to the admissions representative. Front and center, we have two of our juniors who are sporting their souvenir ties from the Lee Company. They were very excited about their ties. We have a couple pictures of the mobile lab, which really was quite large in the back parking lot there. And then some students in our career center taking advantage of the Naviance program that we did. So community partnerships is a huge initiative, working with some of our local businesses and organizations, primarily to try to get some job shadowing and internship programs going for our kids. So the Chamber of Commerce, particularly in Madison, has been amazing. Michelle Call, who's the executive director, hosts a monthly networking event. So I've been able to meet a lot of people that are eager to connect with our students, which has been great. I'm also part of the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce, just to cast a wider net, so to speak, in Guilford and Brantford, North Brantford, to meet some people there. And then Greater New Haven actually offered a networking event in November at the Omni Center, which was great to see some pretty cool businesses and the interest in people connecting with our kids. So all that's been really helpful. Our Madison Rotary, of course, is always amazing. They were so generous in sponsoring 4 of our high school students at a leadership conference in October, and the leadership conference was tremendously meaningful and fun and helpful to our students. So really grateful to them. And then just contacting kind of random businesses and people in the area as the need comes up. So if a student comes in and says they want to study biotechnology, we're reaching out to some local companies to see how we can get some information to the kids. We're also connecting with colleges and universities. So Dan Grenier from our fabulous Career and Tech Ed department did a lot of legwork with Goodwin University, some curriculum alignment, as well as some training from Goodwin. So we're excited that we're now able to offer 3 credits from Goodwin University for our technical and drawings and specifications class that was previously known as CAD. So I think this is going to open the doors for other courses in our Career and Tech Ed department too for college credits. So that's something we're very excited about. And plans are also in the works for a similar partnership with Quinnipiac. So students who are taking our TV studio and TV production courses should be able to obtain college credit for a course at Quinnipiac called Single Camera Production. So that's also going to be a really good opportunity for them. Community partnerships also involve our alumni. I mean, what better way to connect with our current students, with our former students. So we actually just had 2 students come in, one from the United States Coast Guard Academy and another from Virginia Tech. The student from Virginia Tech was also part of the Army ROTC program and the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets. So this was particularly helpful for our students who have an interest in the military. And those students were glad to come and visit Daniel Hand and share their information and knowledge about these programs. We're going to be planning this spring a program with our current seniors and 2022 grads, kind of a question and answer sort of session just about the transition to college and kind of navigating freshman year. So I think that should be pretty helpful as well. We're looking to expand our connection with the alumni as well. One of the fabulous things that I think SchoolLinks offers, that's the platform I was telling you about, is an opportunity for alumni to have sort of a profile on the program. So they can post videos or they can post information about their jobs and career paths. And then finally, just networking with other college and career counselors. So there are some local high schools that have similar positions to the one we have at Daniel Hand, and these programs have been in establishment for quite some time. So these counselors have been a huge, huge resource to me. And we try to meet every couple of months, and of course, they're around for questions as we go. So, and a really good resource. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'll turn it over to you for any comments or questions or anything you want to hear about.
I have a question. Is there a resource available, not just to the students, but the families overall, kind of outlining kind of like a timeline of events, you know, when they should start doing their college visits, when there's things like Husky Day, when ACTs and SATs and all those sorts of things are. Is there one place they can go to find that, or could we create like even a tab on the website that's college preparedness and the types of forms that you should have available when you're completing FAFSA?
Yeah, there's so much information, so
Yeah.
it's hard to keep everything straight. That's something we're working on with our curriculum and trying to make it more clear, trying to make a better timeline that students can just turn to. Right now, our website is being updated, so we're putting that information in and giving them some good resources. But yes, we're definitely working on that. We have some timelines up there now, but I think they definitely could be improved.
especially since I'm just thinking with college visits, you can't necessarily go and do those during a break
Right,
because colleges aren't in session, but then parents need to take the time off of work, so oftentimes they need to plan several months in advance, so almost like sophomore year, they might want to be making preparations for college visits during junior year.
yeah. Yeah, and one of the things we're talking about in our curriculum development is an early meeting with juniors. Just to, from me, just to kind of, all right, here's what we need to be doing now, here's what we should start with, this is what you should be looking forward to. And because all of the counselors do meet with every junior in their family, but sometimes you're right, you know, something might have already passed, or it might have been helpful to know that ahead of time, ahead of that meeting. So,
Right.
yeah, I agree. Good idea.
So we have a lot of advanced manufacturing and precision manufacturing in Connecticut. And the state, in an effort to be business friendly, has worked with the chambers of commerce and business organizations to create feeder programs that because a lot of our manufacturers are complaining that even though we have highly skilled workers in Connecticut, they're not able to hire them, they're not able to find them. And so there have been a lot of state level programs and grant programs and matching programs and all of that that have run through especially the community colleges. And so I'm wondering if, especially for the students that are not looking to go to college, have we been steering them? Is there an active program to steer them towards some of these programs? Like they may have to drive and go to Asnuntuck Community College, but there's like an awesome program there that can get them an electric boat job where they're making $100,000 a year operating a computer,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
So as you see, a lot of the programs that we put on had kind of a manufacturing sort of base. And a couple of years ago, we had a grant, and Jen Holly from my department in counseling and a couple of career and tech ed teachers, we did an externship at a manufacturing company. So we kind of were hearing about all of that, and that was really helpful to learn, you know, that there is such a need here, and there is a need to train and educate our students. So we've really developed a great relationship with WEPCO. That was our placement for our externship. They're up in Middlefield. But yes, we thought about, we've looked into doing some pre-apprenticeship programs as kind of a feeder for that. So that's some of the work that I'm going to continue on this year. Hopefully we can get some of our courses lined up and kind of work with maybe the lead company or with WEPCO as our training facility so that students are prepared and can go off and get a job. But it's true. I mean, they need workers, and that is part of why Electric Boat reached out to us. They want to come down and talk to students and, you know, tell them about what's out there and how to get prepared for it.
You mentioned that Goodwin connection, which I know that could be expanded, and we're looking at expanding that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
and some other areas. So that's a big manufacturing
Yeah.
college that very similar in price to some of the other areas.
thank you.
I'm trying to sort through who is the constituency that the College and Career Center serves? Is it everybody? Is it those students that teachers or students themselves are saying, I'm not sure the traditional college direction is for me? Is it in the minds of faculty or yourself or the center designed to serve kids that we think aren't going the traditional way? What, can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's for everyone. So a lot of the lessons and curriculum work is really directed to everyone. So exploration of all different avenues, it should be suitable for everyone. But the individual work that I do is depending on the student's need. So yes, we have students that are going to college and I'll work with them. We have students that are really lost and have no clue, and I work closely with them. So really the goal of this program and what the work that I do is for everyone. So that's really the plan. It's not directed towards any one particular individual or path or anything like that. I think some of our lost students, sometimes I think having this position will help some of our lost students because we do have such a large percentage that go on to a four-year college. that sometimes those people who don't have an interest in that path sort of get forgotten. So fortunately, having this will allow for more opportunity to help them find a clear direction.
I mean, I see in line with other comments that have been made, so. I see great opportunity here, but I also see, based on my experience, obstacles in terms of people's preconceived thoughts as it relates to college and career. And the opportunities today, because the world has changed so much, for opportunities in advanced manufacturing, opportunities in biotechnology, opportunities, in point of fact, I mean, most, I think, in the community look, as soon as they hear college career, they go, kids going to college, kids not going to college. But, the reality today is that no longer exists. If you're going after any kind of technical career, it's going to require post-secondary education, usually college. Sometimes it's community college, tech, whatever. But it isn't, from my perspective, that isn't that conversation anymore. So, I think it's, when I look at a center like this, I want students to understand there are all kinds of opportunities that exist today. Some of it is technical, some of it is lab work, some of it is advanced manufacturing, some of it is IT, there's just so much out there that their parents don't know about.
Right.
And hopefully guidance folks know more about to say, you have many more options today than ever before. And so I look for the school and the district to be responsive to that reality and look at the College and Career Center, and Naviance, and identifying interests, because in point of fact, not the lecture, but in point of fact, every single one of our students is going to work, and there are skill sets attached to that industry people and people in careers are universally saying we are not graduating young people that understand the workplace. So, I think that this has an important role, but it has to be really cognizant of the current changes that exist in society and the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Just, if I can encourage something, I know that a lot of the competition and a lot of the drive to get into top schools is innate in our students. And there's like the sibling rivalry among them who can get into better schools and what school I got into. I think maybe more can be done to celebrate the non-traditional college. Like, it's a victory if a kid gets into a good program that's gonna, they get an associate's degree and they get an awesome manufacturing job. Or if they, get into baking school or, the Culinary Institute or whatever. So if there's anything that can be done, let me change it into an encouraging question. If there's anything that can be done to celebrate the diversity of opportunities out there for our graduates, and to celebrate all their accomplishments and getting into various kinds of programs and not just into top colleges, I think that would be very helpful. Also toward diminishing some of the pressure that some of our students feel that's resulting in anxiety.
Yeah,
that we're
absolutely. I
experiencing
agree
lately.
100% because you look at, those kids who are just running and running and running to get to the finish line and for what, going to a prestigious university and lasting a semester and then leaving because it wasn't the right choice or because it's not working. So I completely agree.
I think the timing of Chrissy's position is super important. And, Chrissy's been in the position since September. So, I think we've made great strides, but obviously, we want to continue to grow the work around many of the comments that the board made. So thank you, Chrissy.
If you take nothing else from it, understand the board supported this and continues to support the importance of this
Yes.
in reaching all students with the variety of choices they have. So,
Appreciate that greatly.
And I think the next presentation will build nicely on some of those concepts.
Yes,
And that's
certainly
the
the
work of
pressure, the
advisory.
anxiety piece that you were speaking about, absolutely, yeah. So this program is, the advisory program is relatively new. We started constructing it last year. And we only launched it this fall, so it's only been, around September. But the idea came out of a need for something that was truly an advisory program. That we didn't really have like we had a period that we brought kids together in, but it didn't really have an advisory approach to it. It was more like an administrative task, passing report cards, distributing schedules, forms, things like that. And then occasionally when we tried to do things that were more in line with advisory, it really didn't feel that authentic to kids. They were pretty vocal about that as well. And I think teachers felt the same way, that they felt that it was incongruent with what we were doing in there. So, we felt that having a dedicated advisory period that was built on, creating relationships, having small groups of students that meet frequently, to feel that they have a place in the building where they feel comfortable, that maybe they, this is the one time a day that maybe they connect with people, and potentially a place where they can go if they needed some, if they had some issues or problems that they were struggling with. And so Catherine and I developed this by doing a lot of research into advisory programs. We looked at pre-packaged programs like the Sandy Hook Promise and a couple others. One was from Yale, I think Wayfinder. We spoke with other districts that have already had advisories up and running in Westport and not Westport, Watertown. Just to get some feedback on how things were going with their programs. And we decided that it was probably best for our students to pick, to create sort of or to create our own advisory program that had specifically what the students at hand were asking for. We sent out a variety of surveys, students and staff asking what kinds of topics they would like to see, what kinds of structure they would like to have. And so that's kind of how we built the structure of advisory. Catherine and I did lots of training through restorative practices. We did some CASEL training as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So as it currently stands, most of our program is built organically from the ground up, which is good in a lot of ways because it's, maybe more responsive to what our students need, but difficult in the sense that, we're sort of building it as we're doing it, which is certainly challenging. And so we spent some time doing some PD for staff. We brought in consultants that worked with restorative practices, training teachers on how to engage students in these kinds of discussions that may be coming up in advisory. And that's essentially how this program began.
who runs the advisory sessions?
Oh, so we're going to get to that. Basically, teachers. There's two teachers in each room in each advisory period with about 15 students. That's a lot, but that's based on the staff that we have and the amount of students we have. That's the best that we can do. And the teacher, and we plan less or activities around different domains and topics that CASEL has identified are social and emotional learning opportunities, and then teachers deliver those in those 20-minute advisory periods.
It's all the teachers or?
All the teachers.
All faculty, all certified faculty, so counselors and other support staff who are certified as well. Admin is in there as well.
Yeah.
It was out of order.
Oh,
Just to
sorry.
go back one. Okay. Oh, no. No. Back to the original.
Sorry about that.
There we go. So we also have been working with a really dedicated, completely volunteer faculty committee. And underlying all this is a faculty and a student body who want advisory. They want it for all the right reasons. And so we worked with this faculty committee to design this vision and set of goals for advisory that really reflect the CASEL standards. There are now state SEL competencies, which you heard about, I think, your last meeting from Sarah and Jen. The district and the Daniel Hand improvement plans are also very clearly reflected in this vision and the goals. And most of all, like Ron was talking about, the needs that our students and our families and our own faculty expressed through surveys and committee work as well. We worked really closely with a student committee last year as well, who also presented to the faculty. And they had input on the structure of advisory, the topics that we're starting with in advisory, pretty much every aspect of that. And building a student leadership program for advisory going forward is something that we're going to talk more about and is in our larger plan and our larger goals. So, you know, embedded in the vision and the goals, you can see the CASEL domains of building trusting relationships, responsible decision-making, managing emotions, cooperatively solving problems, and overcoming adversity. So in addition to focusing on trusting relationships, which is really the core, which is really what we started with this year. These advisory groups, students and faculty actually had input in them. We spent many hours with a algorithm that one of our, gosh, what does he teach? He teaches everything.
Well, he's the Fab Lab.
He's the
guy.
Fab Lab. He teaches biology, chemistry. I'm not sure what his title is now. The teach everything. Teacher came up with an algorithm that we gave students a survey where they were able to enter certain information, and then they were plugged into this algorithm, which I cannot talk about intelligently, but it matched student groups so that these student groups were not alphabetical, they were not random, but they also didn't put students with all of their best friends or people who had all the same common interests, because that's not the point of advisory either. So we started this year with doing a lot of, you know, not just research, traditional research, but you know, firsthand primary research of what our community wanted and needed, as well as spending a lot of time in how these groups were created before we even got off the ground and running. And this year we are focusing on developing those strong, trusting relationships so that we can get into deeper social and emotional topics. If you don't have those relationships, you can't have meaningful conversations about much. And that was one thing that our students really voiced last year, which was hard to hear as a faculty. They felt that the teachers were really there for them for biology and for math and for social studies, and that they cared about grades and giving extra help. But a lot of students said, I just don't know who to go to about personal problems. Or if my friend comes to me about this serious issue that I don't really know how to help them with, we don't know where to go with it. And so, you know, at the crux of all this is just building positive relationships that aren't tied to grades. So we're focusing on that and looking to make advisory not just based on student input, but actually, so it's not just student driven, but actually student led. And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, sorry, these are out of order in this thing over here.
We don't want to keep you on your toes.
So we've been talking about the CASEL framework a lot, and this is a national program that's really focused on social and emotional learning in schools. And so most of our design and structure and topics that we talk about in advisory are to some degree or in some ways connected to one of these 5 domains. The idea is that students are struggling with things like Mr. Klaus had said, with anxiety, you know, and feeling overwhelmed and not being able to manage stress or what to do about rejection. So those topics are something that we think are valuable to address in advisory. And our portrait of a graduate also connects with these CASEL domains, especially the idea of communication and collaboration, which is a big part of relationship skills, responsible decision making. Especially given the climate that we're currently living in, there's lots of opportunities, or at least opportunities are presented where students might not have the skills they need to express themselves about topics and issues that are inflammatory. And so we're hoping that, through advisory in these different SEL CASEL domains, we can provide them with some of those skills.
And this is to highlight some of the pieces of the Daniel Hand School Improvement Plan that advisory directly supports. Working with all stakeholders to provide a safe and positive and respectful culture. We've also partnered and are working closely with Madison Youth and Family, with Melissa Boletto, with Scott Cochran, also with their clinical consultant, Claudia Califano. She's has a lot of really good insight and information about, what the tone is in town about some of the dicey or non-academic things that are still really important to address. So working with them is something that we're doing and we're going to continue to do and is really important. All of this is helping to improve the physical and emotional safe learning environment at Daniel Hand. And increasing student leadership opportunities. We are working towards piloting in the fall a student leadership training. We're going to start with juniors, and then we hope to expand this more and more, perhaps in the spring, and then every year going forward, where students will be trained both by staff at Camp Hazen and by Madison Youth and Family to be able to not just work as our core kind of representatives to give us feedback, but also to design lessons and deliver them. And so that's, really advisory is a bigger picture that we're working on, but that's a really important piece that students are voicing that they want, that faculty are voicing that they want, and that we're working towards.
Okay, so this gives you some ideas to the structure of what advisory looks like. It's basically every Wednesday, a 20-minute meeting with the same group of people. These groups will be, the groups that they are now will be the same groups they will have throughout their entire 4 years. So the freshman group now will follow all the way to senior year, with the idea of, when you spend 4 years together in that kind of group, that there's more time to establish that dynamic and that bond. So right now we have 52 groups. Again, they're all split up by grade level groups. We have talked about in the future trying to get maybe the seniors to visit the freshman groups to have them sort of run an advisory lesson on their experience at hand and what they questions the freshmen want to ask them. So we're working on that. As Catherine said, our focus this year was on relationship building and future leadership development. We did structure basically the entirety of the leadership training program. And we offered it to the entire school. We got a lot of good feedback. There was lots of people that volunteered, way more than we thought there was going to be. So then we had to sort of change gears and offer it to just the seniors, but unfortunately they didn't follow through with it. So we kind of had to step back and say, okay, let's do this training in a more meaningful way in the fall with the underclassmen. So we're going to be doing the training, the student leadership training with Madison Youth and Family Services at Camp Hazen. And these, like Catherine said, these committees will be, or these student leadership committees will be responsible for creating and delivering, as much of the activities as are appropriate. We have regular meetings with Madison Youth and Family Services. We get feedback from Google surveys. We just recently got one this winter before break. And so we kind of took some of that student input, teacher input, and sort of it helped us inform how we're going to do this in the spring. We had some ideas that we ditched, and we said, okay, what they're really asking for is this in the spring, and so can we create some activities and lessons that are more in line with that, which I think, or hopefully we'll get some feedback Initially, the feedback's been positive. I think it's, like any new program, it's, people are not sure what to expect and what it's going to be like. And so, but I think for the most part, the feedback's been positive.
So this year, all 52 groups, so all grade levels are doing the same activities each week. The goal is after the next couple years is to have grade level specific activities, because what freshmen need is different than what seniors need. And this summer, we are looking to work towards that by creating a 9th and 10th grade activity plan, and then an 11th and 12th grade activity plan. And then that will become, more specific as time allows and we move forward. But this year, these are some examples of lessons that all groups did. Towards the beginning of the year, on the left-hand side, groups worked together to create a working contract. In order to have any type of dialogue in these groups, we had to establish what respectful dialogue looked like. So that was a really meaningful activity that groups did, and all over the school, you'll see that these lists are posted. So groups, talked about them, created them, and posted them in the rooms that they meet in. And so you also walk into chemistry class, and there's somebody else's respectful dialogue working contract posted on the wall. And it's just a really nice, concrete example to see all over the school. And on the right side is an example from a lesson we did where students were able to voice things that bother them or bugs and wishes. And in this activity, students got to practice using their respectful dialogue. What were things in the school that they thought could be improved, but instead of just complaining about them, how could they frame them in a respectful way and then offer a solution? And that was a really valuable activity in respectful dialogue and just effective communication.
This is another activity that we did where students had to work collaboratively to try to accomplish a task. And this one, it was to stack coffee cups, paper cups into a pyramid using nothing but a rubber band and some string. And so the idea, again, here was communication. It was working through, difficulty, when the cups fell and things went all over the floor, how did you persevere through that instead of just throwing the rubber band on the table? So I think we have is there a video for it?
It would have to be when you can.
Oh, you have.
There is a video of them doing it. If you're interested, we can click on that link.
I think it's pretty short.
It's short.
Up at the top, the cup challenge demonstration. Yeah.
Title, yeah.
I think there's a video. Okay.
Well, the kids really had a good time with it, and it was also really valuable. Not only was it fun, but they came out with some really good lessons about communication and teamwork.
Is that student sweatshirt on backwards?
Yes.
Oh,
I think he wanted
we
to
should,
talk to the kids.
no, we should explain that.
Yeah.
That was so that teacher in that group, the groups mastered it very quickly. So then they decided to add a challenge to it, and they had the students who were actually using the rubber bands. Oh, here it goes.
Yeah.
Turn their sweatshirts backwards, and their partners had to direct them. So they were doing it blind.
That's great.
Chief, you open the door? I think someone locked.
And these students dropped a cup. And so now they're attempting to get it off of the floor.
Is there sound in that?
Debrief after these activities.
There's always a debriefing closure. There's oftentimes discussion questions, asking, when the cup fell, how did you, or how did you work through that? What conversations were had? This one specifically was a little bit about leadership. And so the questions were asked, like, did the group choose a leader? Did a leader just emerge? Like, how did you, 4 people working together is sometimes not as effective as one person saying, okay, we'll work together, but I'm going to take lead and say what we should do next. And so with all these activities, there's always reflection and some kind of closure at the end. Absolutely. Okay, so you get the idea.
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
I thought there was follow-up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're gonna have to,
Okay,
I have to
we
be
can-
cognizant of time.
we can wrap it up. So that was our second, we're on our last slide anyway. So these are, one thing we should have mentioned is that, per contract, there can't be any more preps for teachers. So the way that these are packaged per se is that you can grab and go with them. So everything teachers need, there's an option for their dialogue to be scripted. All discussion questions are provided in an activity plan, but many teachers and faculty have chosen to look at them ahead of time. So we get materials out to everyone ahead of time. We get a video talk through so that they're not just looking at a piece of paper, they hear our rationale and talk through of what is to come. And most faculty spend, the 5 minutes watching those videos, and they're not reading a script for advisory, but they are delivering it authentically because they care about it. But that's how it's delivered. It's packaged, it's, can be grab and go. And I think we've pretty much already talked about where we hope it's going. It's definitely a building year. We've run into some challenges for sure, and we are regrouping and moving forward from those in a positive way. But overall, the faculty is on board and positive, and students are as well. And we hope that
Building
the
that.
changes that we've made for the spring, they're ready to move on from the team building. They said, we know each other, we like each other, give us some substance,
Let's do some other stuff.
which we weren't expecting right away. And the feedback we got last year was opposite from that. They wanted to ease into the substance. Now they're saying, let's have it. So we're gonna go in that direction.
Perfect.
Any
Can you
questions?
give us some examples of some of the topics?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So like we said, some of these early ones were more based on team building, and so we did like, they had a deck of cards and you pick a certain card and there's a question associated with it that you had to ask people in the room. But today we were working on perseverance through rejection. We're doing an activity on the effects on your brain with social media. There's another one on different behaviors that create authentic, long-lasting happiness versus like trying to get that next little quick dopamine hit every 5 minutes from the cell phone. So we're bringing in some more hopefully relevant things that they're experiencing in their lives.
And those examples all fall under the umbrella of stress management, which is something that in the survey we just gave in December, that was one of the top things students wanted specific activities and skills and tools for.
What do we do about stress?
That's what I was gonna ask. When you guys sent out the survey, how was that developed? Was there a lot of just blanks where they could fill in their own answers, or was it more of like a ranked choice? How was that survey written?
It was a mix of open-ended response and multiple choice response. We asked students questions such as about what percent of the time do you think you're on task in advisory? For an example of a multiple choice, do you feel safe in advisory? Do you enjoy going to advisory? I mean, some were simple as yes and no, and then open-ended questions such as what is one thing that, you think went well in advisory? An example, it could be a lesson, it could be the dynamics of the group. What's something that you don't like that happened so far? And what are some things you'd like to see in the future in terms of topics as well as the structure?
And then the answers to topics, is that what kind of is guiding then
Yes,
these
it is.
lessons that you're creating?
And we talked about actually setting out maybe another study because some of the topics were a little broad and we weren't, like just to ask them, what specifically about this topic are you interested in? There's something like stress maybe is like, okay, we understand what that is, but there was some other topics that were a little bit broad. And so, more specifically, what would you like to see?
And we're also using, the CASEL and the standards and the state competencies to guide all this as well. But we didn't want to just blindly, use those standards or competencies. We wanted to focus, because they're broad, those standards are as well. And so under those standards, what are the things that the students at hand are saying, hey, we want some help with.
Great, thank you.
One of the things that I think some of our students have difficulty with, because they're all wrapped up in their own stress and their own rat race and whatever. I think sometimes hand students have difficulty being kind to one another. And I would love to see, I mean, when this whole thing started, there was a little student resentment. I heard because it was seen as an impingement
Yes.
on their free time from what Wellness
There's still
Wednesday.
that. That's still
Yeah.
there.
Then I think it turned toward Madison cynicism.
There is a
You
little
know, our
bit, yeah.
students are very cynical about
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
But I think the more that it's student-led, I
Yes.
think, Stephen and I have talked about on many occasions, the way to really change culture is to create a reverse peer pressure almost, and have the students lead the way out there.
Yes.
And that's how it's most
Yeah.
authentic. I would love to see a bridge to where maybe they're not ready for it this year, but maybe within a couple of years, when the first generation of kids who started this program
Absolutely.
have graduated, so the resentment and cynicism are gone. But maybe, you take a look at what we've learned in our group of 15. And, you came into this probably not knowing and making assumptions about some of your classmates. And now we've broken those walls down and you've learned that these kids are pretty cool, and you could spend an afternoon with them.
Yeah.
And you might choose to spend time with them. You never thought you would have.
Yeah.
Imagine every other of the 52 pods or whatever they are full of kids just like that who are learning to break down those walls. And
Yeah.
I think when we get to that, that's like the self-actualization.
Yeah, totally. That's the goal. Certainly, absolutely. I think we were a little ambitious thinking that we could, make that happen in the first year, but
Yes.
it's definitely worth
It's
a
a
process.
process.
Yeah, totally,
It is.
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where we hope our student leadership program gets to.
I applaud that this has become part of the discussion in school, because it certainly is part of the life of our students.
Yeah.
I applaud that you're sampling the students for what's important to them. I applaud that you're developing their leadership increasingly. I applaud that this is organic and evolving, because for it to be real and responsive, it has to do that. I also look at it and I go, this is going to be far more effective when we look vertically through our schools. The more kids are talking about emotions and feelings and communicating and those realities, and that becomes part of what you learn in school. When they get to high school, they'll have a greater comfort level. And I think these conversations will become deeper, more profound, and effective. But, I love that as a district, we are doing this, because it is what, and this board has talked to, is so needed.
Yeah.
The whole business of wellness and mental health and kids navigating this modern world is huge, and schools have to take it on. This is part of it.
Agreed.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Well, this is a good example of teacher leadership, because I have to say Chrissy cares deeply about college and career and brought this to us well before it was a position, as Catherine and Ron did. And this is their creation, their idea, their ability to listen to kids and to bring to our attention what kids need. So really a good example of Madison's finest coming up with what kids need. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Love
think
to
I have
continue
the
to support.
final agenda item,
Yes.
which is a quick update. You guys can stay here and listen or? Thank you. I wanted to give you an update on the state reading program waiver request, and that's for kids in grades K through 3. True to typical state style, the waiver was released just before Christmas and came with a deadline of February 28th. So the waiver request came, I think, right around 18th of December, something like that. Immediately, the coaches gathered in our demo room and in room B the week before Christmas, and also the week following the Christmas break. They've also been there. And we've been diligently working on 9 queued questions from the State Department, as well as evidence and scientific research to back up our application for the waiver request. We're making tremendous progress, although it is lengthy and daunting, but everything has to be linked to what we authentically do and what we authentically use. We were able to get some feedback against our first submission around that same timeline. We've been using that feedback to just reinforce some of the concepts that might have been not as clear in the application as we want it to be. We also secured samples of the programs that were on the state approved list, so we could look at those samples and see what they were like compared to our application. So in conclusion, we're hoping to send out our application after it's been vetted by 3 reading researchers across the nation that we have lined up. And once we get their feedback as objective authors, then we are ready to submit. So hopefully that will be near the end of next week is my goal, a little bit earlier than the state is requiring, a significant amount earlier. We were promised that if there was something they weren't clear about, that they would call us and ask questions. So I want to provide enough opportunity for them to do that, for us to give whatever additional information is there. But we will be, hoping for a very strong submission. As I said, we're approaching it a little bit differently. We're getting outside people to look at it. And we feel pretty confident that we get a strong submission.
Well, that's one thing I was gonna ask is that our original idea to send it out to 3 researchers and ask for feedback, objective feedback from them? That's
our
fantastic.
style. Yeah,
That's
that's our
great.
style. We have been collaborating with these researchers as professional developers throughout the past couple of years. One is from Kent State, an expert in fluency and vocabulary research. I think he's one of the top 2 acclaimed scientists from a study from Stanford. And then another researcher is from UConn, Dr. Rachel Gabriel's been working with us for a long time. And then a third is through Haskins Laboratory and also a parent in our community. And that is Dr. Benjamin Powers. So we are super fortunate to have kind of a trifecta of really highly acclaimed people to look at our work.
I do know that at the CABE CAPS conference, several of us and several board chairs raised concerns during the seminars and whatever to the state Department of Education about the strictures of, having only 7 commercial programs on the list of acceptable reading programs. And there's been cynicism from among the board chairs community about the waiver process. In light of all that, I think that, the Department of Education, first of all, was pointing the finger back at the legislature and saying, well, it was their statute. But I think a lot of us have gotten together with our legislators. And I think the legislature is looking at it again and may take a different view on whether they're going to restrict it to 7 or
5.
Yeah, or 5. Yeah, I'm sorry. Or I don't know what they're going to do, but they're looking at it again this coming session.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I do believe there's some clarity needed in that regard, and I agree with that approach. I think, as an educator and as a curriculum leader in the district, I'm also approaching it in that I would welcome, the feedback from the state, and I very much believe that we have the science of reading well incorporated into our approach. So I think it's an opportunity for us to have that, I don't know, I guess that reassurance that the state sees it that way as well. So I'm trying to kind of be open-minded and embrace it, and it's a heavy lift. But I do feel that if there's something more that we need to learn, then we need to learn that. We're always about continuous improvement. However, I also feel that we have a huge amount of evidence that says that our approach is very effective for our students. We have 3 years of authentic data from our students disaggregated, lots of charts and graphs. We have a very strong case. So I would be surprised and very inquisitive if we don't get the waiver. You like that? Dr. Cook?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to say it. And I appreciate the approach you took to it because I think you've expanded it beyond to make it worthwhile for us. It wasn't just about filling this in and checking the boxes and getting it done. You know, look for outside input. We've made changes where we thought we could strengthen things. The work of the team, that you've overseen and how much time they put into it and energy and they come with a smile every day and work, straight through. I mean, it's just really been amazing. So I think it's good for us to maybe have gone through this process, as painful as it probably has been. And yes, I'm anxiously waiting to you because I think it's going to be a positive result. And if it's not, I know, we'll adjust, but I'd be very disappointed to hear that it wasn't in the state because as Seth shared, I know that the legislator is kind of looking at like what they approved maybe late at night and questioning whether they made the right decisions as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been a labor of love, and I have to say, we are putting probably 110% more into it than we need to, as is myself. But I also feel that if we want it to be as good as it can be, and it impacts every single child in our district, and it should be meeting the needs of everyone. That's always been the goal. So we take it seriously. We will be looking to have an endorsement, of our submission. And I talked to Stephen about that in our prior meeting, and I'm hoping, Seth, that we can run that by you as well. But we've also, the people who we've had looking at it also said that they would write a letter of endorsement themselves. So that's exciting too. And they volunteered that very readily. So
Good luck. Thanks for all.
Thanks. Yeah. Hopefully we don't feel like because we have all this talent this year.
Wendy, do we have any members of the public?
No.
So no public comment. Cognizant of the time, and thanks for that presentation, but it's of great importance. At this point, barring anything else, I would like to adjourn at 20 minutes to 7. Thank everybody for their presentations and questions.